This is Mick Foley.
This is Harley Race.
This is Shelton Benjamin.
This is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
This is the Monster Abyss.
And this is Daniel Bryan.
This is JBL, and you're watching the MWF.
Be there, live.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We are now joined by someone I have a great deal of respect for in the world of professional wrestling, the one and only Les Thatcher, a man that has truly done it all in this business.
Hey, Dan, it's a pleasure to be with you. I broke into business up your way almost 46 years ago, actually. In fact, my 46th anniversary will be July 4th of this year. But I got my training in Boston, and I guess what was the forerunner of all wrestling schools, Tony Santos' gym, at the corner of Mass and Westland Ave, just around the corner from Symphony Hall.
What a career it's been. I believe it was the early 1960s you broke into the world of wrestling.
Yes, absolutely. Blue Hills, Maine, my first match. So, yeah, I'm familiar with the area, with New England. And then my last couple of years I've been up there to do a couple training camps. So I don't like your winters, but I enjoy your summers.
What brought you to the Boston area? I believe you're a Cincinnati native.
Yes, absolutely. Well, getting into the business in 1960 was a little tougher than it is today. And the promotion here was run by Al Haft out of Columbus, Ohio. And back then, I wrestled a little with the YMCA's, but back then, Haft, most of the guys in there were legitimate, good amateurs, good shooters. And so he liked to see credentials, and I was only about between 175, 180 pounds at the time. So anyway, I read about Tony Santos' gym in Boston where he trained young aspiring wrestlers. And I had talked to Haft here, and that it was just a closed door. So I corresponded with him, and in February of '60, got on the Greyhound here and moved to Boston. And broke in, had my first match July 4th, 1960 in Blue Hills, Maine, against Cowboy Ronnie Hill.
Did you go over in the match?
Yeah. I can't remember the first time I won a match.
Really? Well, at least you're honest about it, unlike a lot of others might be in the same situation.
You know, I just saw Ronnie, trying to think, 3 or 4 years ago at Cauliflower Alley in Vegas. And that's the first time we'd seen each other. Well, I had run into him a number of years ago, but yeah, that was my first match, and actually I worked 2 times. Another a young guy from Boston U at the time, Joe Sasso, played football at Boston U, and Santos had broken him in. He and I, as the baby faces, were against Bull Montano and Ronnie Hill. This was the 4th of July celebration at the Blue Hills Fairgrounds.
Les, like we said at the top of the interview, you're a man that you have literally done it all in the world of professional wrestling. We're not just talking about wrestling in the ring or promoting or training. You literally have done almost every task there is to do in wrestling. For some newer fans that might not recognize your name off the top of your head, give us maybe the Cliff Notes version of your career beginning in 1960 all the way to present day 2006.
Well, I began wrestling in the 60s, as I said, and actually my first big territory was 1962 in Indianapolis, office of Jim Barnett. In fact, that's where the name Thatcher came from Barnett. And my real last name is Milady, and which is everyone mispronounces as God knows what, Melody, on and on. So anyway, but I was accustomed to that. I had thought about changing it in Boston, but since it is very Irish, Mr. Santos said that I should keep it. So I did, and then I've never thought about it after that, and went to work for the Barnett office, and I think it was, been there about a month. I went to Indianapolis for the television, and Les Ruffin, who was one of the bookers, came in and said, Mr. Barnett would like to change your last name. The announcers are having a tough time with it. And I said, I was 21 years old, and just give me a place to wrestle and pay me a little bit. I don't care what you call me. So anyway, that was my first big territory. And then travel. I started down in the Southeast in '66 with Roger Kirby and Dennis Hall. We were doing a cousin thing, and worked at Atlanta office, Mobile. At the time, Mobile also ran Louisiana out of Baton Rouge. Was invited into the Florida territory in '67 by Eddie Graham. Got NWA Rookie of the Year there, where I first met Gordon Soley and first heard the first very good commentator I had ever listened to in wrestling. And anyway, Moved around. I had a great run in the Knoxville area, Knoxville office, and also out of the Charlotte office, and predominantly stayed in the Southeast with the exception of a trip to New England, or to the Maritimes, I'm sorry, in 1970. And worked all those territories down there. And got involved with television quite by accident in the Maritimes. Replaced an announcer that was called away because of a death in the family, and the rest is history. So I started doing that also for the Crockett office in Charlotte, and then I initiated the television in Knoxville, and Ron Fuller bought that territory in 1974, between 74 and 77. I did television and production and hosted shows in both territories and wrestled in both territories, and did Crockett's magazine, and one for the NWA. Worked the Atlanta TV with Gordon. I've been blessed to work with some of the best people in the business in all the capacities. I've done production work, been a producer on television, helped with booking, done the magazines. In fact, did the very first WWF four-color magazine. If you see the Billy Graham advertisement now, that's on the SmackDown and the Raw show. If you notice the magazine cover where Billy is carved out of a mountain and the other wrestlers are trying to climb it, that's the very first issue of that, and that was done back in the late 70s. So, and got into training wrestlers in 1993, and that's what I've been doing ever since. And I've enjoyed every moment of it, Daniel.
Is there something that stands out of 46 years in this business, one thing that you enjoyed more than the other things you participated in?
No, I think, gosh, everything. Well, what? Promotion, I suppose. One of the hardest jobs I ever did, we ran 4 Pillman memorial shows here, which I would think were the yardstick to measure the charity shows by. As you know, during one period, we had all 3 of the ECW, WCW, and WWF at the time, all under one roof on the same night, which hadn't been done. And, of course, they had a lot of help. A lot of good people worked on those shows. But promotion, I think, is the least entertaining to me. I loved wrestling, the television end, because of being able to get creative and stuff. That's always been And with the funny thing with the training, and I think I really have a knack for it, and I've enjoyed doing it, and I suppose I'll do it until I'm physically unable, is that they had to actually con me into doing it. I don't want to do that. Come on, just give it a try. And so I did, and have very much enjoyed it. And I don't know, when I take my last breath on this earth, I'll be probably doing something wrestling related. But I honestly have been just lucky that I've been able to make the transition, from wrestler to commentator, editor, trainer, and so on, and it's kept me in the business.
It's one of the most amazing resumes I've ever come across in the world of wrestling. Like we've said a few times now, you have done literally everything there is to do.
Except get rich, and I'm still trying to do that, Dan.
That's the tale of just about most of us in the business, but...
or most of us in the life, right? No matter what it happens.
Oh, from your mouth to God's ears. Part of the reason why you're with us tonight is to talk about a new book that you helped put out, A Guide to Professional Wrestling, put out by Sports Publishing, LLC, where you, Harley Race, and Ricky Steamboat put together almost an instruction guide as to how to do a lot of the maneuvers you can see on television each and every week if you're interested in becoming a professional wrestler yourself. Tell us a little bit how you got involved in this project and your thoughts on the book itself now that it's out.
It's been over 3 years ago now. Ricky and I had done a training camp, Mark Curtis Fantasy Camp, in conjunction with the Pillman in 2000, or 201, and worked well together. Harley and I did a camp, which is an annual affair now with Cauliflower Alley in Vegas. We do a 2-day camp and then pick 30 wrestlers at the end of that to do a show the next day. But anyway, we worked together out there and did well together. So anyway, the 3 of us happened to do a week-long camp out at Harley's, and from which EPWT, or Elite Pro Wrestling Training, was born. I came up with the idea and posed it to them, and they said, "Yeah, let's do it." So we started, doing these training camps around the country. And Harley's book, his own personal autobiography, came out through Sports Publishing, LLC. So they approached us with the idea of doing the training manual. Of course, talking about the evolution of wrestling, 30 years ago, we all 3 given shot dead for doing this, because like you're giving away the company store. But in truth,
Oh, absolutely.
It's still it's one of the toughest pursuits, and that's the one thing I tell my peers that aren't still around the business. They say, "Well, how do you deal with this? No more kayfabe." And well, it's easier to explain to you how tough it is, and now that you can understand it, you're going to realize that. It's easier than saying, "Hey, let's step outside and I'll show you." Plus, you don't get locked up or beat up, so it's an easier way. But anyway, the book. Our intent, and we hope it came across that way, if you are wrestling at entry level, and honestly on the indies, that doesn't necessarily mean your first match or your first year, because they run these camps around the country. A lot of the guys are self-trained, and no matter how hard they try, you can't teach what you don't know.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100% too. It's just...
And the one thing with the three of us, there's over 130 years of professional wrestling experience at virtually every facet of the business. If Ricky Steamboat is not the consummate babyface, then I don't know who would be. Harley was 8 times world champion, and I just went along for the ride. But I think technically I was as sound as anybody, and like I say, I really believe that my niche is a trainer. I think I've turned out some good boys who are currently in WWF or WWE, TNA, Japan. Been to Puerto Rico, Ring of Honor. So. I'm real comfortable with that. We're leaving something. So the book, I think if you're a serious fan, it's like buying a book explaining the NFL. It gives you a better insight. We stress throughout the book that no matter how many times you read it, without hundreds of hours of ring time with a legitimate, competent trainer, you still can't be a professional wrestler. And maybe then you won't be either. But again, Dan, I think it's one of the toughest pursuits. And you've sat and watched our training sessions in Vegas.
I have. It was a great experience for me. As someone that's never actually worked a professional match, I got so much out of the camp. Sitting there for 2 8-hour sessions, I enjoyed just about every minute of it, and that's when you and I met for the first time and became friendly. It was a great experience, even for someone that actually doesn't participate in the ring. The things I picked up on and put into my own mind as a result of it.
Well, that's, and we feel the book. It's our experiences. You'll even find a couple things like hitting the ropes described in a couple different ways, because each one of us was taught it just a little different. But the main thing is in safety, helping protect your opponent. We go into some of our there's some sidebars in there, as you know, describing some of the things that we have done or shouldn't have done, or whatever the case may be. But I think it's good. Here's the problem, I think, with the independents. Again, when you're teaching yourself, you're going by tape. You don't understand the psychology. You put the cart before the horse, and I understand that. When you're young, the exciting things are far more entertaining than the things that have to be repetitious and done over and over until you perfect them, and that's what the basics are. The same as football, basketball, baseball. A quarterback in 1940 took a 3-step drop and set up to throw a pass. Guess what? He does the same thing in 2006. The foundation, if you build the foundation from this book, you can work for any legitimate promotion and virtually any style from this foundation. When I say that, a lot of guys will, today want to go to WWE, so they're perfecting more of their entertainment value of the thing. Somebody wants to go to TNA, is trying to see how many quadruple somersaults they can do. It's so the point is, but they all to be good at that, they still need the foundation of professional wrestling and the psychology, you're a storyteller, and that's what the book's about. We're proud of it. I think JR writing the foreword the way he did too, says a lot for his confidence in us, and so far the reviews have been very good. I just I hope it leaves something for the guys to learn.
I guess I have a little bit of that old school mentality in me, and I wasn't quite sure how I was going to take to the book when I opened it up and read about the different moves and whatnot being exposed, but I enjoyed it an awful lot, and that's why we're going to be giving away a few copies of it at our website, MWFProWrestling.com. And if you don't win the book through our website, you can always check out SportsPublishingLLC.com, and I believe you can also get it through your EPWT.com website.
You sure can. And it's Atomic Athletic, which is a big powerlifting and weightlifting center, Bowling Green, Ohio. They carry it. High Spots has it. It's out there, and in the bookstores. And I'll tell you, we're talking about accomplishments, Dan. never in my wildest dreams of the things I hope to ever accomplish in this business did I ever think that I could walk into a Barnes & Noble and see my name on the jacket of a book. So that's kind of, I'm marking out for that.
It's amazing how wrestling has evolved over the years, especially from back in the day when you broke in. You probably never expected to see even a book about wrestling being exposed, never mind a series of them, and then having your own 40-some-odd years later.
For 2 years, I had a 3-hour block Wednesday night main event, 9 to midnight here on a local sports talk station. And when I first went on, I found it very difficult to talk about work rate and finishes and open up. But I realized if I didn't, I'd be talking to myself and nobody was going to listen.
Right.
So, but like I say, yeah, I look back at this over 46 years and realize the changes that I have had to make from the initial way I was taught. And that's the other thing we stress in our camps. And you never stop learning. I'm still, because the business is changing. And when you do, then you're dead. I mean, you're going to flatline in terms of your progression and as far as your talent.
And in a profession like wrestling, if you can't continue to learn something new, you're pretty much all dried up, and it's time to move on to another endeavor in your life.
I don't know if there's anything new or not, but just in doing it in a more modern way or a different way.
Exactly.
That's the thing, too. A lot of people look at Harley, Ricky, myself. Tom Pritchard is working with us in EPWT now. Okay, you guys are all old school. Well, yes and no. The foundation, again, is the same now as it was years ago. But so that you're not, you can still get your big spot in. You can still get your acrobatics in. But work a hold, build, tell a story. It's time. It's more entertaining. Once the people catch hold of it, they're pulled in more by it rather than just the raw acrobatics over and over again. And it's just so it's a combination of the two. Some of the current high-risk stuff with a good sound foundation.
That's what's missing in a lot of today's wrestling, exactly what you stressed upon right there, where you have a lot of high-impact type maneuvers, a lot of high-flying, but a lot of things aren't done at the right place, at the right time, in the right way, and that's exactly what I think people will get
yes.
out of one of your seminars.
Again, you're like a storybook. There's a beginning. You should be taking the fans on an emotional roller coaster ride, and elevating them at the end. You watch a good Benoit. I think matches. It's a couple years ago, Benoit and Angle, where they went from crossface to ankle lock to crossface to ankle lock, back and forth. Just imagine yourself being a fan of either guy. When he has a submission, you're elated. When he's switched on him and he's in peril, your spirits drop up, down. That's the secret.
They had a tremendous match at the Royal Rumble in 2003 right here in Boston, and the crowd they gave them both a standing ovation after the match, and that's usually not a style you see promoted by WWE.
Yeah, and sadly, you'll hear experts saying, oh, that doesn't work anymore. Well, it does if you know how to do it. And I will agree, it's tougher, and it really is. To perfect this business the way it should be is tough. It's very hard, and very few people have done it. But the psychology is so important. We talk about the old school or back in the day. There were guys then who physically wouldn't get hired today because they were, misshapen or too overweight or whatever the case may be. But those guys had timing and psychology, and they could have a building near rioting.
It's amazing at some of the talents that we might be missing out on a national level right now because they don't have that Hollywood look or the Hollywood physique, or they don't have the right haircut. But when it comes down to it, it's what happens in the ring and on the interviews that would people get captivated watching.
Well, I think scripting the interviews...
horrible.
They're missing. Well, there may be somebody who can't memorize a script and make it sound good, but if you turn them loose, they may be spontaneous enough to come off, and you don't know that until you give them some freedom to try.
Right.
That's the biggest thing. The major stars have developed their own character, which is the extension of themselves to a certain degree.
There's nothing worse than watching someone that has no clue of the concept trying to be a bad actor on television. I think everyone should be allowed the freedom to try and find their own voice, not try and memorize interviews word for word, because it just doesn't come off as authentic in the least bit.
Yeah, that's to me. There's the spontaneity has been lost due to creative taking too much control.
Right.
And you know, there's always been a time. There were always guys who had to be, even some top guys who could do whatever was asked, but maybe wasn't creative enough to come up with a concept. But the point was that was a trial and error situation too. It's a shame today. I think so many of these young guys are being brought up, expected to fit into the role immediately. If they don't, then they're cut loose, and they really haven't. You know, they weren't ready to be there to begin with. I think today more than I've ever seen in recent times, there's more inexperienced young athletes in positions of importance, and you can't be sure they will be able to carry the ball until you give it to them.
Absolutely. Look at some of the recent talent that was released by WWE. They had the Hot Throb tag team and the Dix tag team. I mean, these are teams that weren't even around a year, and they already released them. They were probably called up a couple of years before they were ready for prime time to begin with, and now they're out of a job.
Sure. Well, look at all the young guys in TNA who you and I, you know, if you're a connoisseur of the industry, say, well, this guy's a great worker and this guy's a great athlete. And yes, can they draw money? We don't know. But we're about to find out, aren't we?
Absolutely, beginning in April.
And that's, see, and there's where the separation comes. It's that thing, you can be a great athlete, you can have a great look, but it's that comes down, well, since we're doing a show in Greater Boston, let's make the analogy, it's like Larry Bird, 3 seconds on the clock, the score's tied, it's either give me the ball or, my God, don't give me the ball, but Larry asked for it. And the higher up you get those high shots, man, the pressure's on. You've got to deliver.
Well, the pressure is certainly on down in Orlando, down where they run, and it's going to be a very interesting 2006, I see, because you really don't know what the future of WWE is going to be if they decide to implement the testing that they've spoken about. Because remember what happened in 1992, and just about every valuable name they had left the company. So if you combine that with the emergence of TNA, I think it could make for a very interesting year in the United States.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, for good, pure wrestling, I mean, you know, for the psychology of the thing, to me, right now, Ring of Honor is the place to be. And when I say that, they have their flip-flop and fly, their, you know, crash dives, and but usually your top matches are good, solid, you know, like the Bunk Samoa Joe 60 Minutes or whoever. But I think that's the middle ground right now. I would like, I'm not adverse to being entertained, not adverse to Pretty Women, not adverse to a little comedy, but
there's too much of it.
Yeah, that should be the transition to. It still comes back to what, you know, what goes on in the ring, and again, not because I'm a traditionalist, not because I'm from the old school, but to me, just sound business. And hey, believe me, WWE's got more money than I'll ever have in a lifetime, so they obviously know something. But to me, it's sound business that whatever you're doing translates into helping put butts in seats or sell pay-per-view subscriptions. And I just don't understand. I mean, I don't think you and your buddies, you know, gather around the TV every Friday or every Monday or both, you know, to watch Raw and SmackDown, and you see hey, they're coming up, they'll be in Boston in 4 months, and okay, so by the time they get there, you're kind of programmed to how to react. And which, again, kills the spontaneity of the thing. You know that Kurt Angle comes out, whether he's a good guy or the bad guy, you're going to say you suck. And, hey, I've been reading on the Internet where they want everybody to cheer John Cena. Well, let's boo him just for the hell of it.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely. I agree with you 100% again.
It's it's just tough to really get a reaction off a crowd because, you know, but where does all the, you know, you guys are watching this, and then when the big pay-per-view comes about, do you say, hey, I can't wait to see how many worms the boogeyman's going to eat?
Right.
Or did Sheldon's mama really have a heart attack? No, you're going to see, is Angle going to beat so-and-so? Is Benoit? Because it comes right back to the wrestling.
No, again, right on the ball. We think so much alike, it's almost scary, but that's a different story for a different time. I never like to come off as if I attack WWE, but it's just there's a lot of things I find critical at this point in time in the company.
You know, I tell everybody, they say, again, you know, well, I said, no, listen, there were things that I saw 40 years ago that I didn't agree with, but then I think that's part of, if you have a creative streak in this business, you can't sit 5 top guys down and have them agree on everything.
Right.
Or 5 great bookers back in the day to agree, because they each had or take 5 Academy Award-winning directors, give them all the same script, and I'll guarantee you they all won't shoot it the same. So you're going to have some conflict in creative, and but I think just the freedom of the guys to be allowed to develop themselves is just it's not there. Sad thing is, the guy, to me, if I had to have these writers, I would have each one of them attached to the hip of DiBiase, Steamboat, Anderson, Malenko, whoever else is back there as an agent.
Right. If they find the need,
have them, learn some of the business from those guys, and then they would have a clue as to what they're. And I realize they're trying to make some changes, but I don't know that you need to reinvent the wheel. Just what the decorations on the wheel should be, and that's what I think they've gone past that.
Sure. I mean, if it's their company, they have every right to hire writers from Hollywood or these different areas of entertainment that they want to bring in and put the wrestling shows together. But at least let these people learn about what it is they're writing for. I think they've lost the pulse of the average wrestling fan, is what it boils down to.
I don't think you could take again Steven Spielberg and have him do an Academy Award-winning movie unless he understands the subject matter.
Right.
Or you can't give Ernest Hemingway, resurrect him from the dead, and have him come back and write the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel on a subject he has no knowledge about. So it's I don't know.
Everybody uses that peaks and valleys excuse, and I think that's a bunch of BS. I mean, if people enjoy what they're watching, they're going to watch, and if they think it sucks, they're going to change the channel. I mean, that's what it boils down to in my mind.
Yeah, I think so too. But I think everything runs its string back. See, and that's the other thing too. You don't have the luxury. Well, Helmsley sat out for a few months, and I think that was a smart move. There are times, instead of firing guys or just burying guys, they need, again, let's say I was working in the Charlotte territory, and George Scott says, well, we pretty much run our string. You've been here 2 years or whatever. Maybe to get you out for a while, and then you come back. Yeah, well, that makes sense. So you find another territory to go into for a year or so, and go back or go on to another one still. But and when I say this, Dan, this is not just the average guy. The best worker in the world runs at some point, peters out, loses his drawing power, not completely, but it starts to dwindle. And at that point, there is no place to send these guys now. Right.
Unless TNA emerges even more so than it has, there aren't a lot of big contracts being thrown around in that neck of the woods.
You know what I think, and of all this, I think the neatest thing is that Jericho and Christian were able to step down because they were financially solvent. And if Vince hasn't done anything else for the business, he's made that possible for this generation, and I think that's great because there's no union, there's no retirement, there's no hospitalization. Man, you're on your own. And the fact that these guys could walk away while they're healthy, Chris to pursue something else, and Christian to go down there, and I guess he's trying to pursue acting as well. But the fact that they don't have to worry about it, or Molly Holly says the same thing. She doesn't live. I believe I read somewhere she says she doesn't live lavishly, but she's comfortable, and if she does nothing else, she's done. She's okay.
Well, especially when they're at a young age, as opposed to being a little older in life and have their bodies broken down more. These are relatively young people that are taking a break, and I think when they decide to come back, because we know how addicting the business is, they'll be all the better for it. They'll be more fresh in everybody's mind.
I don't know with Jericho. I think Chris is a pretty rational guy, and again, he may, But last time he and I had a chance to talk, I told him, I said, man, do you realize how really neat this is, that you had two basically fantasy dreams that kids all over the world dream every day, and you've been able to fulfill both of them pretty well to the max. The music and the wrestling, and then now he's doing into some movies and stuff. So I just think that's tremendous.
All the power to him. As we know, a lot of the guys don't wind up that way. As we've talked about before, WWE, we didn't mention it in this interview, but your Heartland Wrestling Association was actually the developmental affiliate for WWE for a few years early in this decade. What was that experience like for you?
Oh, that was, I enjoyed it. And I like, Jimmy Cornette, if he's still watching, and I don't years ago, it was like I've wrestled some of these guys. Well, I still have Flair, for God's sakes. But, it's neat to know that, to watch and know that you've worked with some of these kids and you've been able to touch their career in some positive manner, and I always talk about my kids because any of them that have been run through my place, we've had our differences like fathers and sons will, but I still, care about them, and if I can help them in some way, Chrissy Vane, who just signed a contract with WWE, had a chance to work with her at 3 different camps with Steamer and I, and I just feel, she felt that we had, helped her turn the corner or go to the next level, or whatever you want to call it, and just the fact, that makes you feel good. It really does. It's you can't, I'm too old to stand the crowd up and sit them down when I want to now, but if I can watch somebody else do it with my help, I'm all for it.
Let's talk about another thing we're both active participants in, the Cauliflower Alley Club. It's the only organization that I know of in the planet that is out to help old-time professional wrestlers when they're in need, whether it be financial or health situations. It's something we care about a great deal, whether it be trying to recruit members or doing raffles at our various independent events. This past April in Las Vegas, you received a Cauliflower Alley Club award and were named to the board of directors. What exactly does the Cauliflower Alley Club mean to Les Thatcher?
Wow. They must be crazy, Dan, for putting you on the board of directors. That's what it means to me. No, I'll tell you what, I have been a member for, I think, 10 years. And just for whatever reason, one or the other, I just never got out there. And 5 years ago, my kids, when I say my kids, not my blood relatives, but the kids at HWA got together and gave me a Christmas present of a round-trip plane ticket to Vegas for Cauliflower Alley. So I came the first year, and that's where I saw Ronnie Hill, who I hadn't seen in Lord knows how long. But anyway, it was also neat. I ran a couple guys off the top of my head, Fritz Von Goring and Billy Darnell, who I bought tickets to see, and who, were part of the era that made me want to do this. I was able to meet them, as peers for the first time in my life. And plus, it was just such much fun, I decided I want to go. And they were looking to get young guys out there. So Eddie Sharkey and I did an impromptu Q&A seminar in the Riviero's casino, or slot machine section, about 3 a.m. on Sunday morning. And I mentioned to Carl Lauer and Red Bastien, and I said, you should do some kind of training camp or something for the young guys, give them a reason to come out. And me and my big mouth, I got to be part of that. Harley and I spearheaded that, and this will be the 4th year that we're going to do it. This year we're at the Plaza in June 8, 9, and 10. And so Scott Casey, of course, jumped in, and then whoever happens to pass by, whether it be Bruce Hart or Jack Briscoe or whoever, a lot of, so you've been out there, you know what it's like. We get kids from all over the country. We had like 60 independent wrestlers last year, of varying skill levels and experience levels, but nonetheless, it's a good time. We picked the best 30 athletes to put on a show on Saturday, and then, of course, the big banquet. I was moved by the award. I honestly was. It was the Art Abrams Lifetime Achievement Award, which is the second highest in the club. Harley presented me and put me over, and my first comment was, I said, well, it can't get any better than this. I just got put over in the middle by an 8-time world champion. That's it, man. That's it for me for the night. But that was, and then the board of directors thing, I don't know, gosh. I don't know what they want out of me, Dan. I hope I can give it. I love it out there. I really do. It's a great time. Vegas is has a life all its own, but it's a mixture of wrestling fans and young wrestlers and the veterans, and it's not like an organized queue or a legends type of thing. And it's, as long, we ask that the fans not ask for autographs at dinner, at the banquet, while the guys
they do anyway, but.
But other than that, everybody mingles. There's the merchandise tables and guys signing their books, and I guess we'll probably have our book out there this year too. But it's a great time. Whether you're a fan, whether you're an independent young wrestler, we also give Future Legends Award which went to Frankie Kazarian last year. And it's something for everybody. And well, you've been there, and I'm sure you're going back this year. Am I right?
Absolutely. I'll tell you this. I can't think of too many things off the top of my head in this wrestling business that are as positive as the Cauliflower Alley Club. It's a reunion for all the old timers. Gives the fans a chance to really experience situations they've never been a part of. It helps out people in need, and as we've said, there really isn't a lot of people in the business or in the world looking to help old-time professional wrestlers out. It's a positive that just keeps giving and giving, and you're a perfect example. You make good money doing your seminars all across the country with Elite Pro Wrestling Training, and you do this to give back to the business.
Yeah, that's and truth. That's what the other seminar. Yes, I do make my living, but whether it's Harley or Dr. Tom or myself or Ricky before he went to work for WWE, we always tell these kids, all the pay, the best pay in the world is to see you guys do something with the knowledge we're giving you, and that's honestly the truth. And the one thing, if I can do anything on the board of directors, is if I can narrow that gap between the current generation and the old guys, then I think that would be great. I mean, it has. I think we have done that with the seminars and the training. I think that the younger guys are out there mixing more now. Everybody's more, But if we can make everybody pull together, I think that would be great.
As I've said many times on this program and on our website, it's an experience you'll never forget if you are able to go. I've been to a couple of reunions on the Northeast, but it was my first trip to Vegas last April, and I went home, I felt good about wrestling for once, and usually with all the stress that goes on, especially with the BS in the indies, you don't have a time to appreciate all the good things that there are in this business, and the Cauliflower Alley Club, again, is certainly a good thing. Let me ask you this. We talked about a lot of the old timers that go out to the Cauliflower. There's a lot of young guys that go out now because they get this great experience with the seminar. We had Carl Lauer on this program. He's a semi-regular guest. I believe it was in October or November, and he said that only about 10% of the active workers in the big promotions right now are involved in the Cauliflower Alley Club. Why do you think that such few of the current big names are involved with the CAC? Is it because they really don't know all that much about it? Is it because they don't care? What do you think could be done to get more involved?
I think they don't know that much about it. I don't know if it has anything to do with politics. I'm curious myself, or maybe I think it's just for us old guys, and they don't fit that category just yet. But I've heard some positive, like Frank Kazarian, seemed to have a good time, and I know a young man, Jeff Michaelis, out of Denver, Altitude Pro Wrestling Academy, was one of my students. He runs a school in Denver and a promotion. He brought three of his wrestlers and himself came to our thing last weekend, and he brings a crew to Vegas every year because it's a good learning experience for them. Plus, again, once you get to know, once you kind of get to know guys, and you can just realize if you are an independent wrestler and you come in wanting to just think of the thousands of years of experience that are in that building all at one time.
Unbelievable. Let me ask you this, as someone that has spent such a great deal of time in the business now over the past, 12, 13 years teaching people the wrestling business, how do you react when you see so much bad wrestling out there, what people actually advertise as professional wrestling, with people that just don't fit the description and have no idea what they're doing in the ring, insulting what a lot of people put a lot of hard work into?
I've been chastised for this by some of the current generation, which is fine. But I think in our business today, it's never been this way before. There are hobbyists, and there are people actually wanting to make a living as professional wrestlers. Sadly enough, the hobbyists don't seem to care what they look like or their performance level, which mystifies me to a certain degree too, although I know some that actually do care. But I mean, to me, if I were going to play golf casually on the weekends, I would want to be the best golfer I could be, and use the best clubs and learn from the best people. But it is, the business is in bad shape at the independent level. Again, because it is, it's a hobby for some people, it's a playground for others, and it should be where you're learning your basic skills and perfecting them, not waiting till you get somewhere else. Because believe me, if you get invited, you mentioned, well, Dr. Tom and I ran several WWE week-long invitational tryout camps while I was with the organization.
Right now in the independents...
Excuse me.
No, go ahead.
Nobody's going to ask you to do any goofy bumps. They're going to find out if you can lock up properly, if you know how to work a hold, if you understand the psychology. That's the basics. That's the foundation. Which doesn't mean you may not have to eat worms later, but the point is you still need to have that foundation. So, and too many kids bypass that and go on to, hey man, this is a really neat bump, I'm going to do this. So it's, we hope it's, the neat thing is that there are guys, like I mentioned, Jason Blade and Evan and those guys who have taken what we've given them and, utilized it and improved with it. And again, that as a trainer, that makes you feel good that you're not just, beating your gums together and wasting your time.
There are just so many people right now that don't take it as seriously and give it enough respect as they should is one thing that bothers me, and then that just leads to horrible matches on horrible shows that turn off the general population to independent shows. I don't have an ego. I don't think anyone can really tell the difference between most of the independents with the exception of hardcore fans, and if fans get screwed once and see garbage that insults their intelligence, they're never going to want to go and see it again, and it just has continued and continued to ruin the independents. When I got involved in wrestling almost 13 years ago with Tony Rumble, there were maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 independent promotions in Massachusetts and New England. Now there must be close to 20, and I think it's a disgrace, and I know a lot of people hate me, the ones that roam the message boards on the internet, but I truly believe it, and most of the ones that have the negative things to write are the ones that fall into that category. I only want to see people involved in these shows that have a passion for the business. Those are the people that I want to see succeed, not these, like you said, the hobbyists who have nothing else to do on the weekend, but want to get some of their friends to come on out and have a couple of beers and pat them on the back because they were quote-unquote over in front of a crowd of 30 people.
Well, I've seen that where, two guys are patting each other on the back and hugging each other, and it's high five and great match, and I'm thinking, what did they see? It wasn't certainly what I saw. No, Dan, I have people ask me when we get into this type of conversation on interviews, well, how do you remedy that? I said, well, it's as crazy as it may sound, it's very simple, but it'll never happen. If the legitimate promoters that want quality wrestling book only quality guys and run a quality business, and if the quality wrestlers don't work for the fly-by-night promotions and that'll work for nothing, don't get booked at all, then the business will prosper, or at least more so than it is currently. But you're right. When I started my school in '95, there was one other promotion in this area. That was a guy who I had started training people for, and we had a difference in philosophies, and I decided to go out on my own. And so I started mine in '95, and of course Danny and Jimmy were in Louisville to the south, and Al Snow was in Lima, 150 miles to the north. But now there are 5 promotions in this area and 5 schools.
It literally is ridiculous. I'm going to get back to this in a second, but I'm going to ask you one simple question. Should anyone that wants to become a professional wrestler be able to?
No.
Thank you.
I've always wanted to play center for the Celtics.
I use that line a lot. I mean, just because I like baseball doesn't mean the Red Sox want me to play first base this season.
Yeah, no, they shouldn't. And that's, again, I had an expert say that Les Thatcher shatters young men's dreams. And I said, yeah. And any other competent trainer does too. Not by choice, but by necessity, because everybody doesn't have a place in this business. And like I said, I wasn't kidding when I said I'd love to play center for the Celtics. One of my favorite pastimes when I was training up there in '60 and '61 was to slip down to the Gardens and watch Bill Russell and those guys on the parquet. Man, that was heady stuff for me at that time. And so it has been a fantasy of mine. But I also realized that's exactly what it was. I played a little high school ball, but at 5'9", no NBA teams, or never mind NBA, no junior colleges were even looking at me. So, but I mean, you have to realize that at some point. No, and there are guys that'll take your money and stick you out there in the ring and tell you, yes, oh man, you got it. Come back and give me some more. No, when I owned I sold my school almost 3 years ago. If you were to come in my office for the first time, I would have told you, this is hard work. I'm going to get in your face. I'm going to push your buttons. I'm going to see what you got. You know, and here's what it's going to cost you for the 6 months. And after that 6 months, you can stay on and pay monthly gym fees for the next year or the rest of your life. But you will see nowhere in this contract, or you will not hear it come out of my mouth, that I guarantee you one match. I don't guarantee you any matches. And we had kids in our school, and I'm very proud to say, from Nigel McGuinness from England is obviously the most famous. But I've had students from New Zealand, Australia, Scotland, and England, Canada, and all points north, east, and west in this country. And I never promised any of them a first match because, you can throw anybody out there, but this is not Little League baseball, where when you get ahead by 10 runs, everybody gets to play because their mommies and daddies spent the money on their glove and their spikes. This is a business, and my job, I thought, was to turn out the best talent I could because I wanted to build a good reputation for my school. Now, if you don't have a reputation or don't want a reputation or don't have one to ruin, then I guess it doesn't matter. But they're unscrupulous people. Well, in every business, Dan. It's not just wrestling doesn't have a corner on that market.
No, I'm sure you're right about that, but it's just you don't understand how much I'm enjoying this conversation right now because you're agreeing with everything that I have pent up inside my mind.
Well, either that means I'm thinking young or you're thinking old. Which is it? I don't know.
I have your brain implanted into a 25-year-old body. What can I say?
I wish I could do that. Just in training, and then I'd be an old man at home. I don't care, but I always feel sometimes I get frustrated. I think, boy, I could show so much better than I can actually tell. But I think the one thing that anybody that's worked with us at our EPWT camps will tell you is they know we're passionate about what we do because it comes out in us.
Right, exactly. That's what I picked up upon out in Vegas last year. And you don't see that. There are so many con men out there that aren't even trained themselves, that want to pass themselves off as wrestling promoters and wrestling trainers. And what they present are abortions to what professional wrestling should be. Professional wrestling done the right way, to me, is a beautiful thing. I don't have a problem with someone following their dream, but just don't piss on the hard work that so many other people have put into it to try and make it as respectable as I guess wrestling can be.
I agree. Well, I'll tell you what. Now, here's something. Chase Stevens from the Naturals, who I've known, 3 years, I guess, a little more than that. Anyway, he was this past weekend. He was on the shows down there where we were doing the camp, and now here's a guy who's got a contract, who's on TV almost every week on a network program, and so you could say, well, he's a star. But he laced him up and got in the ring and trained and did everything that guys who had been in the business 8 months or 8 minutes were doing because he felt that he could profit by the experience. Well, in this particular camp, there was myself, Tom Pritchard, Terry Taylor, Ricky for Steamboat was there for one day only on Friday, and Tracy Smothers. So there was almost 200 years worth of experience there.
It's a heck of a camp for the guys to learn off of.
Yeah.
I just, like I said, I can't, this has probably been the best interview we've done now in the course of the 4 years, more than 4 years we've been doing this program. I'm in love with the interview, I'm in love with the topic, and I'm in love with the answers you're giving to my questions.
Come out on this program and it proposed to me, my wife will be offended by that, Dan.
What was that again?
I said, if you're going to come out yourself on this program and propose to me, my wife will be offended by it.
No. One of the other promoters in this area accuses me of that, but that's not true. I can say that 100%.
That was seemed to be the thing that everybody was doing a week or so ago. I just...
We have, in this area, one of the garbage promotions was labeled Candy Store Wrestling by Dusty Rhodes, another one where they want the wrestlers to work for free at quote-unquote TV tapings at shows that aren't even on television and so on and so forth. And it's just, I'd like to see wrestling get back to the day where everybody cared about it as much as a Les Thatcher or even someone like myself. I think the business would be better off for it.
Well, I had, before the WWE came in, I had a pretty fair crew here. I had, right now, Chet the Jet, who's in OVW. Dean Visk was just released down there. Derek Nykirk is down in Deep South. Matt Stryker, B.J. Whitmer, Chad Collier, Nigel McGuinness, Cody Hawk. That was part of my crew that I that trained here, with the exception of Collier, who started with Malenko and then came up to our place when Dean closed his school. But so that's and somebody said one time, well, all Les Thatcher's wrestlers look alike. And the guy said it to me, he said, yeah, they look like wrestlers, don't they? Which, I don't, you don't wear sneakers to wrestle, and that was the other thing too. I think when I can't separate the guy in the ring from the guy sitting in the front row, and I don't know who's who, then why did I buy a ticket?
Right.
I don't want, I don't want to spend. Since we were using the NBA earlier as an analogy, at 5'9" and shrinking in my old age, I don't want to know that I'm taller than everybody in the NBA, because then I want to play. I won't want to watch. And when somebody's 120 pounds and looks like my grandson, then I'm not fearful of him for my life. I'm just wondering, should I turn him over my knee and spank him?
Right. In this day and age, there's too many young people that look like little kids that want to have playtime wrestling with their jelly beans and ice cream, and they don't realize while they're enjoying themselves, they're killing a lot of other people. But
yeah, and let me turn that one and mention here too that there is a gentleman. In fact, his testimonial is on our website in the testimonial section, and Jeff Anderson's his name, from Knoxville. He was in his early 40s when he came to one of our camps a couple years ago, and had been in the wrestling business, I believe, 12 or 13 years. And at the end of the first day, he said, I was so embarrassed, and he says this in the testimonial, I want to get down on my fours and crawl and sneak out of the building, because I thought I had been wrestling for 13 years, and in the first couple hours of the camp, I found out that I didn't know anything about the business. But here was a guy who dumped weight to come in there. He worked as hard as any kid who was there. It was 18 or 20 or 22. He busted his hump. He took home an attitude, a different attitude. He was going to elevate himself in the business, and I believe he's done that. And again, I think, and he tells you it's a hobby, because he works for the Knoxville Utilities Board in Knoxville, Tennessee, which is the public utilities, and he has a retirement. So, and he's no delusions of grandeur, but yet he said also, I want to be the best at my hobby that I can be. So again, here's a guy that has my respect, and I'd be more than happy to help him, because you know that he honestly wants to, to improve himself.
right, if people want to get involved despite their height, weight, and so on and so forth, just give it 100% and try and make yourself the best you can be in the ring and the way you present yourself, I guess, is what I'd like to see improve in the independents right about now.
Yeah, I would too. I'd like to see, and the other thing, Dan, and I tell kids, I said, maybe I'm more of a Bill Parcells than I am a Newt Rockney, so I don't give those inspirational speeches. I may be more of a four-letter word guy, but don't do this for the giver, and don't do it for me, and don't do it for Vince McMahon. Do it out of personal pride. Be the very best you can be. If you're going out there half naked in front of all these people, then be the best you can be. I can't speak for the rest of the world, but I never wanted to embarrass myself. I may have a few times, but it wasn't on purpose, and it wasn't that I didn't try to not do that. And so to me, it comes back to that, personal pride. Taking pride in what you do.
Les Thatcher, I wish we had another hour to go on, but we're quickly running out of time. Let's talk about it before we leave. The Guide to Professional Wrestling book, yourself, Harley Race, Ricky Steamboat put that out through Sports Publishing, LLC. Why should the average person, the average wrestling fan, go out and pick up this book, and what are they going to get out of it?
Well, they'll understand what they're watching, for one thing, and if there's any independent wrestlers listening, if you've been in the business 1, 2, 3, 4 years, if you're trained by people your own age or at your own level, that's not to say they didn't teach you what they knew, but they couldn't possibly have taught you what they didn't know. And what is in this book, it will give you a good foundation, and to grow on. And when we say that, it's like the comic divers, the fancy divers, the tower divers learn to dive off the side of the pool properly with good form before they ever get up on that tower and start doing flip-flops. And it comes back to the same thing. It's crawl, walk, run. And the book will give you a good foundation. And, one of the things I tell all the kids at our camps, and that's another thing, too, we don't just leave them there after. I've already received a couple emails from guys that when you've trained with us, then you ask us for information on the website, write to me on the website. I'll continue to help you as long as I can, If I have the answer, and if I don't, I'll get in touch with Harley or Tom, and if one of us can't come up with it, then, gosh, we'll go to a higher power if we can find one.
For more information on the book, more information on the camps, and the man Les Thatcher himself, check out www.epwt.com. We're just about out of time, Les. We look forward to seeing you out in Las Vegas this June. Hopefully we can maybe have another interview in person out there. And we'd love to have you come up to the Millennium Wrestling Federation sometime. I know I've said that before, but we have to make it happen sometime
Well,
this year.
thank you, Dan. And it's been a pleasure being on here and talking to you. And I hope everybody in the area derives something from this. And like I always end my columns in PW Insider, train hard, master your craft.